everyone. In this session, I'm going to talk about multi-tenancy. Now, what is multi-tenancy or a multi-tenant server? Now, they are independent installs or services inside decisions running together on one application server. So what it looks like is there is one primary or control server that will be administering multiple individual tenants or instances of decisions running on the same server. So basically there are multiple tenants which behaves as independent installs of decisions. So it has its own Windows running service, it has its own login directory in the install folder, and it has its own independent database. So what can this solve, and why, when and why do you use this? So basically, it will help you solve some of the pricing and configuration concerns. Since decisions requires an OS and IAS to be running and an independent database. So say for example, if you wanted 15 different instances of decisions, you will have to manage 15 hosted servers, run and or 15 virtual machines, which could cost you a lot of money. Another reason for using multi-tenant servers may be when you want to securely store data and restrict unauthorized users or tenants from accessing them, as each of the tenants has a separate and independent database. Another reason or another instance where you use multi-tenant servers might be when you want to have a base product and then make it available to your different customers, with each one wanting their own customizations. Also, with a multi-tenant server, you will be able to spin up or turn down the different tenants depending upon your requirement. So let's go ahead. Now we'll talk about configuring multi-tenancy in decisions. So this is the multi-tenancy architecture. User comes in and they hit the one application server, which will then filter them to the appropriate tenant and the appropriate SQL server tied to those tenants. Now you might have a question whether a user will be able to log into multiple tenants. The answer is yes. In case a user has access to multiple tenants, whenever they log in from the application server, they will be provided with a choice to select the tenant to which they want to log in. Now, there are few, couple of considerations that you might want to have with multi-tenant servers. The number one is all of the independent tenants has to be on the same version of decisions, and that's because it is still one install of decisions, even though we have multiple different tenants. So with that, anytime you do an upgrade, it will upgrade every single tenant. So basically, you won't be able to serve different versions of decisions with this multi-tenancy feature or architecture. The second thing which we need to consider is, since all of the different tenants are administered by the same primary or control server, a catastrophic failure of the primary server will result in all of the tenants to shut down. So basically, you can control the independent services, like you can turn on and turn off the different tenants independently without affecting the service of other tenants. However, if anything happens with the primary server, all of the tenants will be affected. Now, the next thing which I want to talk about is how we can set up a control instance for a multi-tenant server. So let me just move to the next slide. So for that, what we have to do is we have to run our decision server installer.exe file. And when we run it, the first page which is shown is this particular one, select installation type. So in that, you have to select the option of multi-tenancy server and within brackets control, and click on next till you reach the control server setup page. It is the installation process is same as it is done for normal standard installation process. And in this control server setup page, you will have an option to enter the instance name. You can provide the instance name and then continue on with the installation and complete it. And once the installation is done, let me just quickly jump to my decisions instance. You open up once the installation is done, you open up your control instance application, and over here in the systems folder, you'll be able to see a new folder named as hosting. So that means it has been set up for multi-tenancy. That particular instance has been set up for multi-tenancy. Now that we have the control instance setup, we have to set up the tenant instances. So before setting up the tenant instances, we have to do one more thing. So that is, we have to create an account who should have the admin access to the tenant account. So for that, what we do is we go over here in the same systems folder, and under security we go ahead and create a new account. And like you might have already come across this creating new accounts in different sessions. When we click on this create account, this window comes up wherein we have to provide the email address, the password. So these are the three mandatory fields. The rest all are not mandatory. But then for our multi-tenancy purpose, for this account, what you have to do is, in this hosting session, once that particular control instance is set up, that instance name will be shown over here. You have to go ahead and select that particular control instance to for this particular account. So this is one of the settings that you have to make before setting up your tenant instance. Now, for creating the tenant instance, what you have to do is go over here in this hosting folder, and you will be able to see an add instance option over here. And when you click on it, you'll be able to see the authentication key over here, the admin account. So here, what you have to do is you have to go ahead and select that particular account which you have created and for which you have set the hosting rights. So pick that account, enter the name for the instance URL, and then instance name and the instance URL, and add that particular instance. So once that instance is set up, so I'm going back to my slide again. So this is the setting, same thing which I've just explained. Once you have made that instance, added that instance via the decisions portal, you have to go from the machine location of the tenant instance. You have to run the decisions server installer.exe file again as an administrator. And when you do that, again, this select installation type page will be shown at the beginning. And in this case, you have to go ahead and select this option of multi-tenancy server, and then continue ahead with the installation till you reach the tenant server setup page. Similar to, instead of in the control instance setup, we add the option of controlled server setup page. And since this is we are configuring for a tenant, the page name will be tenant server setup page. And in that, provide the instance name, the control instance URL, as well as that authentication key which we have just seen from the portal. Provide that over there during the installation process, and would complete the installation just like normal. Now, once the installation is completed, launch the application for the tenant instance by giving the tenant URL which we have provided here. And you can log in using that particular account which we have created. So that is where the relevancy of the account and the URLs and the instance name and everything that we have configured from the decision portal comes into picture. And then once you log in through that particular account into your tenant instance, in this hosting folder, you will be able to see both the control instance as well as the tenant instance which you have created, and the status will be shown as active for the tenant instance. So that is how you configure, how you check whether your installation was tenant installation was successful. So that's it with respect to setting up the control instance as well as the tenant instance. And yeah, one more thing. So in case there might be a requirement that since the different tenants are like considered as different installations of decisions, you might want to customize the login page for each of these different tenants. So that is also possible in decision. So like I mentioned to you, while creating the instance, the tenant instance via the portal, if you scroll down below in this particular window itself, if you scroll down, there'll be a page modify the login page URL. So login page logo. So in there you can upload the image, an image file, which will be used as the login page for the particular instance. So that is also possible. Now, the next thing is you might have a question that, say, for example, is it possible for a multi-tenant server to be converted to a standalone database, as well as whether it is possible for a standalone instance to be converted to a multi-tenant instance? Yes, both these conversions or migrations are possible. And how to do that? So say, for example, I'll take the first case. So say if you want to convert a multi-tenant instance to a standalone database. So for that, what you have to do is go ahead to your settings.xml file, which will be available in your installation folder. So let me go to my decisions installer folder, and you will be able to see the settings.xml file over here. So to convert a standalone a multi-tenant tenant instance to a standalone instance, what you have to do is go ahead and search for server type. So server type, yeah. So this server type. So for converting from a multi-tenant a tenant instance to a standalone instance, so instead of from this hosted, you have to change it to unmanaged. So as you can see, unmanaged, changed it to unmanaged. And then once that is done, save this particular XML file, and then again run your decision server installer.exe file. And instead of doing the installation, there'll be an option of restart service. Do the restart service, and then once you log in, you won't log into that instance, you won't be able to find the hosting folder over here, because now it has been converted from a tenant instance to a standalone database. So in that case, the hosting option will not be there, because it is now a standalone database. And now if you want to do the other way around, say for example, a standalone database into a multi-tenant tenant instance, what you have to do is, in that case, the settings file will be named for the server type will be standard, and from standard you have to change it to hosted. And once you make the necessary change, make that change here, go ahead and save the settings file. Again, run your decisions installer server installer.exe file, and instead of doing the installation, select the option of restart service. And once that is done, when you open up the instance, you will be able to see the hosting folder for the but that instance, because it has now been converted from a standalone database to a tenant instance. So that's how you basically convert migrate from a standalone database to a multi-tenant a tenant instance, and vice versa. Now, the last thing which I want to talk about is licensing licensing a multi-tenancy. So for that, from your control instance, navigate to, again, let me just go back and show this to you. So the license utility will be available over here in decision server licensing. This is the folder. You go ahead and run this as an administrator, and when you run this, it will show up the machine key for the machine key. You copy that machine key and send it across to support@decisions.com. They will then reply with the license key. So update the same in over here. Update the same. Once you run this, there'll be an option, there'll be a, what do you say, company machine key, and then below that there'll be a license key. Update the license key over there and then save it. And once that is saved, restart the control instance. Okay, now once that is done, to for the tenant instances also to have the license, what you have to do is log into your tenant instance and then go to, let me jump back to my instance once again. Go to settings over here under the system folder, and you'll be able to see the licensing settings. So go ahead and right click on them, click on edit licensing settings, and select this option of allow license request. So you can, when you do that, you will be able to see the different options like select license server type, the license company ID, the license company name, the email contact of the licensee. All this information we need to provide, which should be given by the support@decisions.com. And then once you set up, go ahead and save this. And once you save this, you will be, when you go ahead and right click over here, you will be able to see a new option as check for license. So once you click on it, if the whatever the details that you have provided it's correct, it will say that you now have a valid license. If not, there'll be another option like force check license. There'll be the second option of force check license. You can select that option as well to force check the license as well. And once that is done, all that you have to do is restart your tenant instance, and the license will be applied to your tenant instance as well. So this is all that I wanted to cover as part of this topic on multi-tenancy. Hope it gave you at least a high level overview on what multi-tenancy is and what are decisions capabilities around that. So that's it. That's all that I wanted to cover. Thank you so much.